So let's start with our agenda for today. We'll see Python history just for awareness, how it came to the market and which version was famous when. Then we will see what is compiler and interpreter. Then we'll understand whether the Python works as interpreter or compiler. Then the Python installation and how we use the IDEs. Then we'll do the same hello world program, which every programmer would want to start with. We'll see variables in Python and lastly data types. And if you go to Python history, Python was invented by the Netherlands Dutch guy in 1980s. He started, but it was actually released in 1991, which was the usual one. Then 1.0 came in January 94, 2.0 in October 2000. Now the 2.0 is not supported anymore by Python team. So till 2020 they were supporting, and then Python 3.0 was introduced in December 2008. When they introduced Python 3.0, there were major changes compared to Python 2.0. The code which was running with 2.0 would not run with 3.0. So they had actually introduced a utility to convert 2 to 3. And there used to be a project specific to converting Python 2 to Python 3, and there used to be some interview questions around that. But now we don't need to worry much because we can easily say we have started using Python 3.0 from beginning. So this is just for awareness. And let's now talk about compiler and interpreter. Compiler will actually the compile our source code into the mission code, which is in the form of bytes, zeros and ones. We must have come across C, C++, Java, right? So these languages, we have to compile them first before we start executing them. That's what the compiler does. Then the interpreter would not need that compilation step, and it will directly start interpreting the source code line by line. That's where you see there is no additional mission code step in the interpreter. As you can clearly see here, difference between compiler and interpreter. We are actually removing one step in the interpreter. So during execution, it has to do that compilation, convert into mission code, then execute. So that extra burden comes to the interpreter. That is the reason Python is slower than the Java, C, C++ because of this additional step. And also the downside of interpreter is, let's say you are writing 1,000 lines of code and there is a syntactical error in 800 line, right? All 799 lines you will execute and then only it fails at 800 line. But in compilers, right, during compilation only that syntax error will be caught. That is the downside of interpreter versus to compiler. However, Python is mostly used as interpreter but also can be used as a compiler. There is an option given in the Python where you can actually compile your code and keep it ready for use to avoid that extra step where we convert the code into mission code. Typically you see all the Python files will be with the .py, and the compile codes, if some projects want to make it more optimal and remove that extra burden, they will keep the compile code ready in .pyc files. But so far in my career, I haven't seen .pyc file so far. It's all .py files, and that's what mostly used. That's about compiler and interpreter. And if anybody asked it whether the Python is an interpreter or compiler, answer should be both. It can be used as interpreter or compiler. Then IDE is basically interactive development environment where we can code Python and test and do our development. There are plenty IDEs in the market, and by default with the Python ideally comes that you see here, and the most famous are PyCharm and VS Code. There are many other like Jupyter, that's a notebook form of doing it, Atom. There are many other, but PyCharm and VS Code are most popular, and we will be using PyCharm in our codes. And now let's talk about data types. Okay, before that, I'll just show quickly how we install Python. Then I'll talk about data types. So as I have said the instructions, right? Just go to this site, download this Python 3.12, then you get the file and you just start installing it. One important thing I want to highlight here is there is one check we have to do when it prompt, right? Add Python 3 point whatever version to the path, right? At the bottom you see this path. So what happens if you don't check this, right? When we run anything in our system, right, and the command prompt for any software, to identify that software, system should know that software, and system will look only in specific paths in any computer. That is what we call environment variables and system path. So if you check this, then our Python software path will be added in the system path, and that is how our Python software is recognized anywhere in our command line. So I have already done this. I'm just showing you. Once we check this and continue with the next step, once it is successfully installed, and if you just type here, right, Python version, the version will be displayed like this. And if you don't check that and install, right, you may not be able to see this. It will say it is not recognized as internal or external command. That is why it is important to add that path to the system. Not only Python software, any software system has to recognize, then it should be available in system path. That's about the installing the Python. And if you get any doubts, you can just message me. I'll try to connect and help. That's an installation part. And with the Python, right, I was mentioning one default IDE comes. That is what this. So this is a very plain one. It's good to start with this plain one or two classes. Then we jump into Python. We'll come back here after data types. Okay. So now talking about data types, right? We see different kind of data in our day-to-day life, right? When we are filling some forms, we kind of fill our age, mobile numbers, right? These are pure numbers. That is one kind of data we see. Then we also see decimals data such as weights, temperature, and we also see text, right? Our names, address, which is mixed with numbers and special cases. Then we also see this yes or no questions, right? In some forms they ask, okay, are you married, physically handicapped, something like that. Just yes or no. And we also see, in some forms we just leave them blank. We don't fill anything, which means it is not applicable for us. So that mostly these kind of data we see in our day-to-day lives, right? And based on this, right, we have different data types in the programming languages. So numbers are nothing but integers, then decimals are nothing but float data types, text is string, and yes or no, it's actually Boolean data type wherein it is either true or false. And blanks, there is a none data type in Python, which means literally nothing. There is nothing in it. Then we also have a special data type called complex. An example here, as you see, 3 plus 5j. J is imaginary number. This is just for awareness, and I have never seen so far anywhere using it. And I don't think I have heard the in interviews also about this. So just aware of this complex data type, but rest 5 only will be using in our real time world also. That's about different data types what we have. Um, Before we start with variables, how we use them in Python, right? I just want to refresh the understanding of computer, how an application runs, right? So this is very important because there are multiple concepts which depends on this understanding how the RAM is used when application is running, how that memory used. So if you understand, there are multiple concepts which will be really easy if we understand this concept. That's why I want to just refresh our understanding and application process in computer. So for any application or task, right, we give some kind of input either from keyboard or mouse, then our CPU, if any memory required from external, it just pulls from the storage and takes into RAM and then process, and it just give to printer or screen, right? And if you can just see the calculator, right? Unless I open my calculator application, the RAM memory is not allocated for this calculation application. Only upon I open this application, then there is some memory allocated in RAM for our calculator application. So now I'm entering 4 plus 5. You see here, right? The 4 and 4 plus 5 still is there in the app. How our calculator is app able to show these values? Because these 4 plus 5 are 9. Everything is stored in the RAM, which is a temporary. Once I close my calculator, right, I'll not be able to see them again. They are just lying there in the temporary memory in the RAM. That is why our calculator is able to process them as per the instruction, that is addition here, and give the output on the screen. Let's go into Python world or any programming world, how the same thing works there. So we give any kind of input to our program. It can be user input, it can be files, it can be database. Then it uses the RAM for the data storage during the application execution. Whatever data it is processing, everything comes to RAM, then gets processed as per the bytecode instructions, which is nothing but our program, what we have written there. And then the output goes to screen, again our files are database. So even programs also, executes in the same way as we have seen the calculator. Then let's see the same example in Python, how it actually executes in Python program. Assume we are giving, these three inputs to our program, 5, 6, and we are telling add them, right? And 5 and 6, the numbers are stored in our RAM. Then the addition, it goes as an instruction and it goes into the CPU. Then both are added and we get them into output as 11. So now let's understand where this 6, 5 and 6 are stored during this, Python execution. Assume this is, our RAM location. Okay, so let's say this is memory location and this is the value. Every memory will have certain address in RAM, right? Let's assume this is 1 2 3, then 3 4 5 6 7, and in our case we are giving two values, right? 5, let's say 6. When the program is getting executed, our 5 is stored in the memory location of 1 2 3, then 6 is stored in the memory location of 3 4 5. With these memory locations only, our Python program will be able to read this 5 and 6. And how it will be able to get this 5 and 6? With the terminal term called variable. We assign a variable, let's say first number. When we assign a value 5 to variable called first number, it is actually a memory location of that 5 is assigned to this variable, that is called first number. Similarly, if you have another variable second number, when we assign 6 to the second number, the memory location of that 6, which is 345, will be assigned to second number. Using these variables, we will be able to write in the Python that, okay, add first number plus second number. The plus we are instructing in the program. That's how it gets the 5, then add 6 to that, and we are going to get 11 as output. So basically, variables means it's a memory location of data stored in our RAM. That is what memory. It's a memory address location, if someone asks the definition of data stored in RAM. And there are some rules. If you are defining a variable name, it should contain, it can contain alphabets, numbers, and underscore. This is the only special character allowed. And the name should start with either alphabet or underscore. You cannot start a variable name with a number. It should always be with any alphabet or underscore also is allowed. And variable names are case sensitive. So smaller case name and uppercase name are two different variables in Python. Now let's define some variables and see in hands-on. So when you come to a IDE here, right, you can directly write Python code here this way. Okay. So this is the way of assigning a value to any variable in Python. This equality is called assignment operator. So using that assignment operator, we assign any value to any variable. First number. Similarly, we can define second number. And as I said, right, you can start with underscore also. That is also allowed. I'm just keeping some random number. But if you want to start with 1, 2, 3 and then write something, then it won't allow. It says invalid token. You cannot start a variable name with 1, 2, 3. And usually we work with the files. We write Python modules, then execute them. So when you open a new file and save them, save it as a Python program. I'm just saving it on desktop. Okay, first day. Here we start writing our program. So now, how do we, show any output to the user in Python using the print? Print, you have to open the braces. You can write whatever you want here. You have to save. You observe the star here in the before the file name, which means file is not saved. If you save it, then the start would go. Then you can run this. You see the output we got here, hello world. That's simple in Python to write anything to output. We can also make notes like while writing, right? Sometimes we need to maintain the comments of a code. We need to maintain some kind of documentation, right? So we can maintain that using the comments. If your line is starting with hash, right? That is a comment. It will be ignored during execution, but it is lying in the source code. This is called single line commenting. We can also comment after your source code like this. This is called inline commenting, and there is multi-line commenting. If you keep three quotes, then three quotes, right? Whatever you write in between here, everything is a comment. So these are different ways how you can comment the code in Python. So even if I save and execute, right, it will be same thing. Now, if you have observed here, right, I assigned a number here, I assigned a string here. So how do we know whether it is a string or whether it is a number we are assigning? Anything we write in the codes is a string by default. Whether you are keeping a 1, 2, 3, whether you are keeping a name, right? If you are keeping something in a quotes, by default that is a string. And without quotes, how we define here 5, 6, right? They are numbers. Let's define some decimal here, 33.56. Even this also without quotes we are defining. Now you may have a doubt. So how do we know which variable is of which data type? Okay, somebody is defined this. How do I know first number is which data type or first name is which data type, right? For that, there is a method called type. So if you put the type method and that variable name, it will tell you what data type is that. Okay, that was executed before, so that session was ended. That's why it's not showing up now because we executed from a file, right? So that's the reason. So I'll just assign again, and you see this error. It is like understandable that name is not defined, which means the variable is not there. Now you see it is saying integer. Similarly, if we say type weight, it is saying float. The Python is able to detect what data type we are assigning to. We are not telling Python, okay, this is float, this is string, this is number, right? That is why Python is called dynamic type language, which means it will detect what data type we are assigning to and we don't need to specify externally. Um, Similarly, bool, let's say is married, right? You can assign true, capital T and R U E without quotes. That is a boolean value. And if you check the data type of it, right, it is bool. Only capital T R U E and false with a capital F. Only these two are considered as the bool values, nothing else. See again type, it is bool. And complex we have seen, right? We don't use, but we'll just take an example. 4 plus, sorry, plus 7j 50 type of D. You see, it's a complex data type. This is how we assign anything using assignment operator, that is equal to any value. Any value within the string is considered as string. Then with a decimal, it's a float. Plain number, it's an integer. Then true or false, it's a boolean. And complex number is this that we don't at all use in real time world. So now if we can see here, right, we have defined this number in the form of string. But let's say if we want to do any mathematical operations on the data, right, if it is provided in the form of string, Python will not be able to do any calculations there. It has to be in the number format. That is where we will need a data type conversions. So now let's understand how we convert the data types. Any doubts so far? Are we good?
Yeah, sure. Good.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to ask one question.
Yeah, please.
So, from this command line, how
Hmm.
to execute a previous commands? Because
No, it's not. That option is not there. If you put arrow, right, nothing is coming.
nothing. Enter is working. I just noticed.
Ha,
But
enter
enter is
works.
picking the enter works pretty well.
Yeah,
And how to execute a file directly from here?
yeah. So I will come. That's why I just opened this file to showcase that. So now let's go with the data type conversions. Okay. Before that, we talked about memory location, right? Here, that every variable will have a memory location of actual value stored, right? How do we find that? Using the method called id. If you put id on any variable, it will show you the location, memory location of that value. This is the memory location of my system, my RAM. That is how we identify. Okay, now come back to the data type conversions.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
please.
One thing. Can you tell, I mean, once again explain complex data type?
Uh, Here it is there, right? Complex data type will have two numbers like this, right? One is like real number, whatever usual numbers we use. The next one will be a real number with uh, a special character called j, right? If we define a variable like this, that becomes a complex data type. And I haven't seen any usage in the real time so far. And really, I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know the
So
use
far,
of.
okay, okay.
I
But
Because
think
as
Calci
uh,
sometimes Calci takes you into complex numbers, right? When it is not in the range.
okay,
Use a very huge number in calculation, it goes
range
into
bounded. Okay, A
Yes,
to J.
it goes with some characters, right?
Okay.
It prints a E something I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
that
I've
is
seen that.
that is
Mm,
different
yeah.
because that e, right, that e represents
Mm,
the e to the power of 15, 20, whatever we use. That is like they short the number and give in the form of e. That is different
mm,
actually. This is like
okay.
imaginary number is what they are calling it. I didn't explore because it was not required. So,
Okay.
but just for our awareness, what other data types we have in Python, there is something called
Okay.
complex.
Okay. 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 Mm.
Yeah,
No, if it is not, required,
it
can.
is it is not at all required in real time world because there are some things we should be aware because if we are
Mm,
working on Python for long some like for so many years and somebody asks what is complex type and we shouldn't be blank
mm.
just for
Okay. Okay.
awareness. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Now let's go back to this. Now let's say same I'm doing right. First number I'm just keeping as 1 2 3 and if you like how do we print right? It's the same print command. You can print any variable also like this. If you give right by mistake like this actually becomes a string. It's not a variable. You are actually printing first name as a string because you are adding a quotes. Variable name when you are using it shouldn't be without quotes. Then only program knows okay you are referring to this variable called first number. And what value we have there? It's 1 2 3. And let's print type of also this first number and see we have 1 2 3 and it says it is a string because we have given in in quotes. So how do we convert now? If you want to convert into integer, we should use int method. So what we should pass now to int method? What we want to convert? That is our first name variable, right? If you want, you can assign this to a new variable. Let's say int. I'm just keeping one new variable. This is my new variable. So now I will just print same thing here and here. I can also just keep for better reading before conversion, after conversion, right? So you see now before conversion it is 1 2 3, the class is string, it was in string form. After conversion same 1 2 3 it has become integer. This is how we can convert a number stored in the in the form of string to integer. And see, when you are trying to convert integer, right, it should be convertible. Then only it will be able to convert, right? Suppose if we have a name, right, and if you try to convert that, it doesn't make sense, right? You are trying to convert a alphabets into number, it won't happen. So if you see, we will get error. Yeah, invalid literal for integer with the base 10. So it is not able to convert. And similarly,
I mean,
yeah, please.
sorry. I mean, like, if you are defining like first as a string using the double quotes, right? That 1 2 3.
Correct,
So it is reading as a string. So
correct.
what if I directly, instead of using double quotes, just number 1 2 3, then
Okay,
it will consider as a number, right?
exactly.
Integer. Right?
Yes, integer directly because we are not giving
So
quotes.
I mean, yeah, in which scenario we require like this kind of conversions?
Okay, so simple example, when we are taking input from the user, right? User in the sense somebody is executing our program and we are asking them to input something.
Mhm.
Suppose we are asking their individual subject marks and we will give them the total marks, grade, everything, right? So when you are
Mhm.
seeking the input of every subject marks, by default
Mhm.
Python takes it as a string.
Oh, by default it will be string.
Uh,
Okay.
that is very
We cannot
simple.
set it as a
No,
integer.
there is no such
Okay.
option. When you are seeking an input from the user, it comes by default as a string.
Okay.
And
Understood.
that won't be a real time case scenario, but in the real time,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the files,
Mm-hmm.
in the Excel, someone may store a number as a string.
Ah,
Okay.
yeah, I understood.
And like that, in
Mm.
the databases, somebody stores a number as a string. And when we are reading the database or files, and when we are doing some kind of mathematics, right? First, we need to convert them and do the operation. This is very
Understand. Like
much
if it is not allowing like directly integer, only it's taking strings, then it makes sense. Like we need to convert
exactly,
every time. Yeah.
exactly. Sometimes when you
Yeah.
read the database, in the database they define that particular column as a character. Then it comes as a
Mhm.
string. So
Okay.
that time we have to convert into integer, then do the operation.
Okay.
Yeah. And similarly, using float, if we want to convert anything to float. When I say anything, whatever is convertible. Let's say, wait, somebody is keeping in a string, right? The same thing. We can even assign to same variable. What happens when we first assign with the string format, right? That value will be there. This value memory location will be there. So when we convert this into float, when this float number will come, right? That float number will be stored in different memory location. That new memory location will be assigned to this weight. Ultimately, after this, you will see only float number. It's not a string number. Once we reassign. So reassignment we do a lot in real-time programming because we got it as a string and we no more need a string value. We just want float value, right? So we just reassign the value so that we are not wasting this memory.
So float number is like decimal number, right? You mean to say?
It's a decimal number.
Okay.
Um, type let's you see it's a float after converting it. And even a plain integer also can be convertible to float because this number by default will have dot zero zero, right? So when you try
Mm.
to convert a pure number into float, it becomes dot zero zero. We can directly print, we don't need to assign to any variable also. The chaining operation is allowed in Python. When I say chaining, you see here, right? First I am doing type, then print. Same way, I can keep adding many things here. That is called chaining. Chaining is allowed.
Mm.
You see now 123.0 has come because we have converted that into integer. And similarly, if you convert that 34.56, right, the decimal value into integer, it just cut the decimal part and gives only 34 when you convert float into integer. We already converted, right? So now let me print this here. I'm just converting our weight into integer. You see, we got only 34 because we converted into integer, so the decimal part will be cut. So same way, if you want to convert something into string, it is string method. If number is there and you want to convert into string for some reason, then str method and you just give, let's say, weight here, right? It would come. Then what else we have? Bool, right? We also have boolean.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me show the output of bool and then we'll explain. Okay. So first we converted the decimal value into string. That worked. That is what 34.56. Now next one. We converted boolean of weight. That is 34.56, right? Then how come we got the true? The reason is except 0, none, empty data structure. Everything else is true by default in Python. So when you are converting to boolean any variable, any object, right? If it is 0 or none type or empty data structure. Data structures we'll see in next classes, but it should be empty. In these three cases, if you are converting it into boolean, that becomes false. Otherwise, it always becomes the true. That is how Python works. And why this is useful, right? If you are processing certain things in the program, if you want to have the check whether this is having data or not before I do the processing, this will help you. If data is there, then only it will return the true, otherwise it is false, right? So based on that condition you can do your processing, and this is very useful. We will see in the future classes as well, right? All
Sure.
major pi, int, string, float, boolean, none type, right? Okay, now let's talk about none type. That is special case in Python, right?
The bool data type only true and false, right?
Yeah, only true
Uh,
and false,
Other than
nothing
that,
else.
you mentioned like yes or no also, right? Is that not?
No, I was just taking an example of like real time example where we fill some form, right? Like yes
Okay.
or no questions. In the programming world, it is true or false.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I was actually trying to convert string to int. It actually threw me invalid literal error,
Huh.
but it was
What is the
throwing. I mean, it was giving you. Hmm,
what is the
is
value
this
you are
version
keeping in the string?
43.6 something,
Huh.
something like what, 34.56? How you
Okay. Thanks for trying that. Um. Okay. Let me just take it as something. W head, right? 43.56. So here it is in the form of string, right? When you are trying to convert it to integer, from the string it cannot take out only 43. It has to go through two steps. You see the value inside the quotes is a floating, right? You will be
correct?
able to convert it as a float because it's a decimal number inside the string. Once it is converted to float, then floating number can be converted to integer. From
So you convert it to
you
float
can't
and
convert
then
directly to int. That is not possible. So if we do two operations, right? First floating, then int. So now you get 43. That's a very good try actually.
thanks.
Yeah. So this is how we can convert, but not directly.
Hmm.
But chaining is allowed, so you can just do. Even this also one of the real-time use case. Sometimes you will have to do this.
Okay, got it.
Any other doubts, anyone? Okay. So now,
Is there any way that from this command prompt you can execute the file,
I was
the
coming to that.
one you wanted?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is actually IDE, right? Uh, this is like a environment where you can write Python code and execute. Okay. Or you can run any file with this command, right? I need to save. Then output comes here. This is not like a command prompt where we can execute this file, but we can execute this from the command prompt. I'll show you. That is how actually real-time applications gets executed. Where are we? We are in C users admin desktop, right? Desktop. Okay. Now you have to just type Python, then the file. See, we got output here. This is how we execute the Python code. We're using Python word and the module name or the file name. When we run through editors, right, whatever command I read, the backend this code only runs. This particular command only runs. This is the basic one which runs in whatever way we execute. And in the real-time projects, right, when somebody is deploying backend servers in the DevOps scripts, you will see this Python, then the main module name, which will trigger the backend server.
So the path is where the installer is there, is it?
No, we added that add path to add Python to path one check, right, during installation. You remember?
Yeah.
Okay, let me show you that. What is that called? Environment variables. Yeah, system variables. You see here, this is the system path where you see Python 3.7.
Mm-hmm.
In this path, if you go right, let me go and show you that also. Admin app local. Okay, let me copy. Okay, not this one. It should go here. Programs. One second. 3.37. Then what is this? Scripts 3732. You see here python.exe.
Mm-hmm.
This is the command we are executing here. When we say Python, right, it will execute that python.exe, this particular executable file. So how it is
Okay.
able to recognize this Python when we are running from any location, right? Because we added that particular path in the environment variables in the system path. So when we run any command here, right, there are certain places where our operating system will go and look for them. So since we
Got
added
it.
this path, it is able to identify this Python ex executable
Mm-hmm.
file. If I just remove this,
Okay.
right, this will not run here. Okay, let me not experiment now. I'll not be able to execute anything if anything goes wrong. But if you can try, if you don't add that, even let's say, right, your Python is not recognizable, you go here, check whether that path is added or not.
Mm-hmm.
Then it will be recognized easily. Not only Python, any software if you're installing and it is not recognized, right, it should be added here.
Okay.
This environment variables topic will also come in the future. We'll explain not system environment variables. We will talk about from the application perspective,
Sure.
like some kind of passwords, right? Some username passwords we cannot store in the source code, so they are
Mm.
stored in the environment, and we access them through environment variables.
Okay.
I think we are done, but I think I can cover next topic also, and then we'll close. Okay. So we talked about, right, how the inputs can be given to the program. There are three different ways. We have seen in the PPT, right? So we'll talk about user input. How a program can seek input from the user using the input method. So if you just call this input method, the program will wait for user input. Let's say number, okay. Then I'll do print num. We don't want this whole thing. We'll just comment out. Comment out. Let me save. and run. See now it is waiting. You don't see these three arrow marks here. It is waiting to give some input. I'll give 5. See, 5 is taken and it is printed. That is what we are doing here. We can actually pass message to user, right? If you are just seeking input without telling him what you need, right? It doesn't make sense. We can actually tell, okay, enter first number, right? If you execute that, then whatever message we are keeping in the input method will be displayed there. You see now here, first number, enter 5, then 5 will be displayed. And that is how you seek input from the user using the input method. And I was mentioning, right, by default it is string. If you check the type of num variable now, 7, you see it is string. And if you are trying to take two numbers and trying to return the result to the user, right, both will be strings and you will not be able to do the mathematics. That is why we have to use the data type conversions there. So now,
Actually, I was just sorry.
yeah, no problem.
Uh, I what I did, I just run the empty py file.
Okay.
So it was asking the same input value just before the class started. So I was just tried. You just uncomment everything and just execute this py file. It is taking the value and giving the output also.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay. I never
yeah.
tried that. Um,
Just comment out everything.
no, I think I closed the file by mistake. Or it's there. Ah, it's there. Okay, let me comment out. This one, this is also already commented. So let's save. Run. No, it
Yeah,
won't
just
ask.
give now.
No, it won't.
Yeah, it won't. But you just give the number. Some.
No, no, no. Actually, if
Oh,
it
okay.
is showing these
It
three
is
arrows,
prompting.
that means you are inside the this one editor now. Ideally,
Mm-hmm.
you are
Mm-hmm.
executing a new code here altogether.
I see.
Yeah.
Understand. Okay.
So
Sharat, but let's say if in the input, if I would already always accept a number of, I mean, a character instead of a number or a boolean.
hmm,
So how can we control here?
yeah, we'll
Is it
learn in the future classes. That for that,
uh,
we need to learn the control flow, how control flow is achieved in Python with if-else
okay?
conditions.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay then.
but like we have already seen the conversion, right? Suppose you are always expecting it is a number and you don't want to convert it separately, right? The chaining is allowed, so you can just keep here int. So whatever is coming from the input, you are converting immediately and then assigning to the number.
Okay.
If we execute, right, number 6, and you see now it is converted to integer.
I missed actually. I don't what missed what Sriram asked. So can we allow to enter only the integers?
We cannot restrict anything from this method as such. Okay, then whatever user is
Example, in the form usually
correct,
we
I
put a
understand
condition.
that restriction Python is not having. But once the value comes to this variable, right, then you can put the logic here. Okay, let's say we have already seen type also, right?
Condition.
Okay, this is a condition with if we do, right? This is a not equal to operator, integer, right? Then you can display a message. Don't worry, we will cover again about if, like what syntaxes, how I am writing. Okay, let's not worry about that. Only numbers are allowed.
Okay, understood. Basically, there is no
Ah,
while inputting, there's no such
no restriction is there.
no variable to take only this such kind of number or
Yeah,
something. There's no variable defining.
correct. Okay, I
Yes.
can do this instead of that. Okay, now let's now see how we can handle from the program. I'm entering, let's say SA. Okay, I should not convert here. Sorry, I should convert later because we need to check that first, right? So, mm, no. Mm, to do now, it will come as a string. Then if you do, it comes as a type. Then it fails. You see now, if you're entering
Yeah.
something else, right? It just says only numbers are allowed. The how many ever times you enter, it will keep giving you same thing unless you
Just
keep
give
a
a
number.
float. Give a float. Okay.
Because we have seen, right? I think Srikant was asking that when the floating number is in the form of string, we cannot directly convert into integer.
Correct.
That is why it was failing there. And if you give a number now, done. So programmatically we can handle, but we cannot restrict user to enter anything. Any other doubts? We will see all these while loops, try, break everything. Nothing, don't worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go one
Yeah,
by one
good.
slowly.
Sure, sure. Question.
Yeah,
This could have been written in if condition as well, right? This.
sorry.
Uh, this could have written in a if condition as well, right?
Um,
If
you
a
can
number
try.
is not equal
Okay.
to integer, you just keep giving a not a integer. It is not a number.
Uh, Maybe possible, but is this is simple approach where you try to convert into integer if you are getting
Mm-hmm.
value error, which means it is not convertible. And I kept an infinite loop, and I am breaking it only when it is able to convert.
Okay, okay, understood.
Yeah,
So this you put in the while loop. Okay, not okay. It's because you need to take the number, so that's why you keep in.
correct.
If condition would have been taken or thrown an exception,
Huh. Maybe possible with if condition. We can try writing it,
but
but
we
yeah,
cannot keep prompting.
that
We could
infinite
have
loop should be there, right? Unless until user enters the correct number, we shouldn't break the loop.
correct, correct, clear.
Uh, Sorry, somebody asking. I missed that.
Yeah. So, what is a data structure?
Um, it is actually, storing a multiple values, not just one number or one string or one floating number. You want to store with different numbers or same kind of data. That's where data structures will come into picture. Let's say, no, if we are handling a classroom students, right? And you can't assign. or 60 or 100 people, like different variables in the program, right? For each student. So that's where you will have data structures. One data structure, one variable will hold all the class information.
Something like array.
Exactly. Array is also a data structure. We have list in Python that is similar to array, and we have
Okay.
other also. I think 4 or 5 data structures we have.
So we'll talk about it next
Yeah,
classes,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I
Oh,
think in next maybe 2 3 classes. After 2 3 classes, we'll talk about.
okay. Hmm.
Yeah, I think we just have 2 more minutes. Okay. I just want to have this assignment to be done. Go here. Okay. So, if Python is not already installed, please install it and execute the hello world. That's the first step to take. Then try to declare a variable of string, integer, all the types what we have, right? And try to print. I think I didn't show none type, right? Okay, let me show you quickly. So if you are assigning a value with none, where n capital N at the first, how we did the true and false, right? The same way. When you put capital NONE, that is a none type. If you just see the type of it, right? It is none type. That means nothing is there. That is was none type. Print them along with the data type, memory location of it. Okay. For example,
Where
if
do we use it?
sorry,
Where do we use it?
um, okay, where do we use? You are trying to, let's say, okay, in the database you are trying to find one ID value, but the ID doesn't exist in this database. When you get back, right, what you will get back? Nothing. So that nothing is represented as none in Python. When anything is not giving you back something, right? When you write some function, if the function is not giving back anything, by default none comes back. And you can do the check whether did you get anything back before processing. Otherwise it would fail, right? Suppose you are trying to get marks from database and trying to do sum. First you should check whether did you really get the record, right? And if you check the response, it will be none inside that. We will see as we go further, right? We will see how the none is useful. Yeah. Yeah, try to declare. This is like very simple and you may feel like not much useful, but trust me, it will be useful as you start typing it. Then define some variables like this in a string format and try to convert them. And one more using the input, I'll add and I'll send in the WhatsApp. Maybe let's see if I have it ready. Okay, we can do this also. Get the name, age, weight from the user, convert them to string, integer, float data types, and print them along. Same thing, but you have to get this input from the user. It's need whatever user is entering. It need not to be Abdul Kalam. Whatever is user entering, you have to print that. And age and weight by default comes as string, right? We need to convert them and then print. So these four you can try for today's whatever we have seen to so far. I think we are good, unless anyone has any. I hope I'm making it clear, but please let me know, if you get any doubts or if you have any feedback also that maybe better we go this way or that way, right? Any comments, suggestions, anything is always welcome. Yeah.
I think from my side, good.
Nothing from my side also. Yeah, all good.
Okay, then let's meet again tomorrow. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Okay.
Bye. Have a good
Okay,
day.
sir.
Bye.
Yeah.